China, Japan, and South Korea are working together on how to retaliate against the United States properly. Each of these countries are being hard hit by the current tariffs being waged against them, and them colluding against us isn't a good thing. China is the second largest economy, Japan's the third largest, South Korea is the 12th largest. When all of them are working together against us, it's not going to help the American worker or the consumer. Japan is getting a 24% additional tariff, South Korea is getting 26%, and China is getting an additional 34%. But there was already a 20% previous tariff on China, meaning that China is now getting tariffed 54%. And China was already tariffing the United States 64%. And now, alongside with reciprocal tariffs against the United States, China, Japan, and South Korea, industrial and tech powerhouses, are now trying to promote more trade with each other and keeping the United States out of the loop. 15% of Chinese exports go to the United States, while less than 5% go to both Japan and South Korea. But because of America's large tariffing campaign, it's going to be much cheaper for China to export their goods to Japan and South Korea. But let's look at China's imports. Only 7% of Chinese imports come from the United States, while South Korea and Japan have roughly the same number, 6.9, 6.8%. And because US tariffs are going to make exports much more lucrative for these three countries, imports are going to be much cheaper. Now, China has an extra edge with the United States because they know that their import and export number to this economy will never be zero. But China will make its currency just a little bit cheaper, maybe 5 or 6% more, to offset the economic damage that these tariffs are supposed to wreak. China can't drop the value of their currency too low because it'll harm their ability to import goods that they need from around the world. But there is a fine line where they can drop it. And if their currency hits that sweet spot value, then their exports are going to be even more appealing to South Korea and Japan, along with the rest of the world that is going to look for any avenue of retaliation against America's petulant taxing. The value of Japan's currency, the yen, is rising heavily against the US dollar, meaning a stronger Japanese yen is going to be able to buy cheaper Chinese exports. Now, normally, Japan, South Korea, China, they don't like each other because they have always been at each other's throats for centuries. But the United States is helping these adversaries come a lot closer. And we all know these three countries aren't the only ones being tariffed because the current administration has tariffed everybody. Even our closest friends have a baseline tariff rate of 10%. All over the world, even the most freely trading countries, they tariff the United States a little bit extra. And historically, we have kept our tariffs very, very low, except for a few key products. Because the United States, being able to provide a clear nexus for all global trade, kept things profitable for us and for everybody. Europe tariffed American cars disproportionately higher than we tariffed theirs, but they built factories in this country. They provide hundreds of thousands of American jobs. That's why we can buy cheaper BMWs and Mercedes. And Japan did the same thing with their automobile industry here. Before 2018, China had about 15% tariffs on US automobiles, and that sounds messed up. But remember, China was a developing economy, and because they were able to protect a lot of their own industries, they were able to grow, they were able to be consumers and actually start buying a great deal of US products. So those tariffs were good. Just like when America put a 25% tariff on all foreign pickup trucks, that was fine for us because our pickup truck industry took off. So the high tariffs that the United States had to face from other developing countries turned them into better consumers of our overall products, and we made money from that. But now there is another extra wall of taxes that every American consumer is going to have to pay. Think of trade as a circulatory system and money as blood. As long as everything flowed well, we were healthy. But now we have these three top economies, along with dozens of others, trying to divert their resources away from America. What happens to an organ that starts getting less blood flow? It isn't healthy anymore. The great thing about life is that they can find other conduits of circulation, but it takes time and damage does happen initially. How much of the organ of the American economy is going to die a little bit or get irreversibly damaged before things start improving? If maybe we doubled down on our relationship with Canada and Mexico instead of antagonizing them and tariffing them or threatening to tariff them, we may have been able to pull it off because the entire North American continent has every single resource that we need. But now Canada and Mexico are looking to China to try to fill the trade gap being left by the United States. I want to leave you with a possibility that I find quite disturbing but harder to dismiss. When tariffs raise prices against imported goods, it's supposed to promote our purchase of domestic products. But a lot of our domestic products are made up of foreign components, which means even our domestic products are going to go up in price. The same is going to be happening to all of these other countries. When prices rise across the board for everybody, people start consuming less. That means inventories go up. When our inventories go up and the people we've tariffed also see their inventories go up, it means not enough manufactured products are being consumed. Eventually, that leads to mass layoffs as prices keep rising. And if unemployment starts rising along with the prices, even less consumption happens. And then we may start to deal with a break where prices start dropping even though hiring and wages fall. That is deflation, and that is something we haven't had to face truly since the Great Depression. Fortunately, the Federal Reserve would probably be able to step in and start dropping interest rates, and our government would start pushing for fiscal stimulus. And that artificial resuscitation is just going to kick our problems down the road for the next generation to absorb. I am the Geo Husar. We need more globalization, not less of it. Thanks for watching.